tuned into Life is a Sacred Journey. Every week, we bring a new perspective to aging and caregiving. Here is your host, Micheal Pope.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're joining us in the virtual neighborhood of Life is a Sacred Journey. I am your host, Micheal Pope. It is my honor and privilege to always come to you every Friday morning. Can you pass me the book? At 8 a.m. here from Berkeley, California. And this morning, I am so excited because it's been about 5 years ago that I met Cedrick Bridgeforth. He is a pastor and in the United Methodist Church, where, as many of you know, I live out my life of service through the United Methodist Church. Sometimes I don't know why, but I do. And I met him at a conference, I think it was, and we were in Nashville. We weren't in California when we met. And we started talking, and there was something about Cedrick that made me feel like he could be a friend, you know, because sometimes we meet people and we're just doing colleague business stuff, and it's like you're just really happy when the conversation's over so you can move along, and you pray you never are in that person's presence again. Let's keep it real. But that wasn't happening with Cedrick. And you know, I was lost kind of, because then I also became a delegate, which I had no clue what that meant. And Cedrick took me under his wing, and he had conversations with me, and he taught me a lot about the stuff about the Methodist Church that I didn't understand at that particular time that I now do. But he also became my friend. You know, that's a different thing. You know, when a person becomes your friend, they do things for you that no one else does. And I will always remember Cedrick, because till the day I die, I will take an act of kindness. I still have a candle that he sent to me, you know, when my brother was ill and sick and dying. I still have that candle. I refuse to burn it because I need to see it. It's next to a picture of my brother, who you all know I love and am still grieving and will grieve for a very long time. So Cedrick means a lot to me. He's a friend. And then he went deep into my soul, because you know how I feel about the soul work, right? You all know that. That's why you come to Life is a Sacred Journey. Hit the share button, hit the subscribe button, make it happen. Thank you all for following us. But let me tell you why Cedrick's here this morning. I was waiting. I was waiting, my dear family, for this book. Okay. So Cedrick would talk to me about it, and I knew about it. And then it came out. And I said to him, oh, I can't wait to get it. So when he announced it, right away, I ordered it. It came, and it sat on the kitchen table, because that's my desk right now, because I'm doing some stuff in my office. And it sat there. And I kept looking at this picture, and I thought of Wakanda, and then I saw the books, and then I saw the face of this face here, and I thought, wow, this is an amazing book. Then I opened it, and it starts with a letter. It starts with a letter to a grandmother. And then I began to read it, and the stories and the interconnection of our lives, the threads of our lives, stuff that he and I have never talked about. I was like, oh my God, I know that story. I feel that story. I've seen that story. So let me tell you a little bit about Cedrick. He is an incredible man. Cedrick is intelligent, of course, and smart. He is a pastor down in Southern California. He also has been just recently promoted, or we call it appointed, to a new position where he is working with communications and community outreach and looking for those intersections where the church and the world can marry, partner, and collaborate, taking the skill and talent from what he's done in his lifetime. But during the pandemic, he also, or a little bit before, I think this book has been in the works for a minute, he sat down and wrote a book. He had some revelations. You know, I think many of us have had some revelations during the pandemic, and he had some revelations about his life. And so I want you to look this up, get this book. It's a great read. It's a great weekend read out in the backyard. And you know, about 8 hours, you'll get it done. That's what it took me. And just get it, read it, learn something about somebody else. Because when we learn about each other's story, each other's struggle, we can see ourselves in each other. And when we do that, then we come together and we promote change. Thank you so much, Cedric. Cedric's a little under the weather, but he made a commitment to me to join us and Felicia this morning. And to all of you, thank you for your commitment of sitting in there while we were going through all this technical difficulties. Thank you, IT gremlins, for finally leaving us because you were getting on our nerves. And welcome. Welcome to Life is a Sacred Journey, Cedric. It is so good to have you with us this morning. Life is a Sacred Journey has a vision and mission to bring the stories that connect people together. But your story is, while it's unique, it is not to you. It is a story that is happening every day throughout our world by different people. And the name of the book, Alabama Grandson, a Black gay minister's passage out of hiding. I want to start there because I want to start with the beautiful letter that you wrote your grandmother. Mm-hmm. So what I got from that is that this was an important person to you, that your grandmother, that she was this, and I just envision her being this incredible sister with the hat and going to the Southern Baptist Church. I mean, I know her, right? I know her. Okay. But you loved her, but were never, ever able to reveal, and that thing in you that wanted to reveal and be your authentic self with her, you never were able to until you wrote this book. I can see you purging that in this book. So why?
Why?
Why the book? Yeah, why did you the need to tell the story and purge this from your life now? Why?
Mm-hmm. Well, first, thanks for having me, Michelle, and thanks for being on the journey. I am grateful to God and to you and for others who I get to journey with. So thanks for that, first of all. And I see it as a continuation of what my grandmother, my mother, and others around me instilled in me at a very early age. And that's to show up, right? And really invest in people, sit back, pay attention, learn from people. Because I think whenever anybody offers us their story, they're giving us a gift.
Yes,
right? They're giving us a gift, and so I'm grateful for that. But the reason for doing this now, one, I turned 50 last year, so I think that was a moment. I went through a very turbulent time professionally and personally about 5 years ago, and it was very public. So I needed to address that. I had some demons of my own that I needed to exercise and work out. And part of it, it's like, if I tell my own story, then no part of it can ever be held against me, over me. I get to shape my own narrative. Nobody knows my story the way I know it. And no one invested in laying the foundation of my story more so than my grandmother. So I wanted to do this in a way that I would hope that she would be proud of. Mm-hmm. And if I could accomplish that, then what everybody else thinks, is nice. And it's great to receive the affirmation, but to know that I did it in a way that honors her legacy, and the input that others have invested in me over time, just made it worth it. And to do it now, it seemed like the right time with all of the loss that we've been experiencing, all of the divisiveness that is present in our churches, in our communities, in our world. I think story is a way to bring us all together.
And when you talk about the moment, I loved it also, the visioning of the red clay one, because I used to eat that stuff and make mud pies and everything.
We did too.
Oh man, I think that's why I'm having longevity. That stuff is in me. We used to make mud pies out of that and eat it. I mean, it was like, oh my gosh. It's definitely a mineral deficiency, we now know, but it's okay. But I was envisioning that in that moment when you went back to the cemetery and that was a moment of release for you, also, that you were able to tell and be authentic in that moment. And then from the letter, you begin to tell about the incident that you kind of talked about a few minutes ago, and move into releasing these things of captivity of the heart, you know, what I call captivity of the heart. And so you switch the narrative around the incident that occurred, because I don't want to be what do they call that? Spoiler? Around the incident that happened. But yet you also told the stories that created all of that, right? So talk a little bit about that, because I think that we sometimes think that we have one thing that happens in our lives, and then we compartmentalize it and we go, oh, we're done with that. But we're never done with any of it, and it always feeds into the next part of the story. And so I don't know if you want to share what happened and you know why you chose to put that in the book and exercise that in a way that you took control of the narrative. If you want to tell a little bit about, you know, or share it in its kind of global sense so that people will still go and read the book. But share, you know, why in our lives it's important to confront those either personal demons or the demons that come from the outside in, that when we confront them, they're no longer, it's like the boogeyman.
Exactly. Right. Somebody has to exercise those things. And I think where we experience the most trauma is when our personal demons are met with those demons on the outside and they conspire against us, right? Because we've allowed those in us to just fester, and those on the outside have been drawn to them, and they get together and they whoop our behinds, right? And so I think for me, you know, it's a sense of whatever joy I've experienced, whatever triumph, whatever trauma, if you will, that I've experienced, I can look back and I can see that it's all cumulative, right? I didn't just have some bright and shining moment on a hill, right? It was cumulative. It built over time. There were investments or experiences that happened over time that led to that. The same, you know, when I've experienced great downfall, that didn't just happen in an instant. There were choices, there were decisions that I made or did not make intentionally or otherwise that built up to that. So it's really, this book is a way of kind of stepping back and seeing the cumulative effect of decisions, choices, relationships, investments, engagements, you know, being fully present or not, being passive and letting things happen, or really getting in there and participating and trying to point them in a particular way. So it's for me, I can't say, in the book, I think reveals that it's never just that one thing, right? Yes. It's never that one thing.
Yes. Well, and even being, you know, identifying and sharing your story in a way where all of the roles that we play, you know, one being a Black man in America, you know, always will go before you in everything that you do, because you can't, I mean, unless you put on a mask and cover your whole body and change the tonage of the melanin in your skin, your voice is going to also declare who you are, because there is, all right, so all of that. So you speak about that, you know, being a gay male in America today, and this, you know, the change, you know, I'm in my 60s, and sometimes when our young LGBTQIA citizens, my beloved community, speak to me, it's a foreign language. It's a new language than what I learned when I was a young person learning about this beautiful community that I actually wanted to be a part of, just as ally, advocate, accomplice, and friend. So I never felt any of that in my community, but now I know the pain that not being able to be one's authentic self and how it manifests in these weird behaviors, not only in oneself, but also in the psyche of it's almost like living through PTSD.
Yeah. Yeah. And it shows up. It shows up in a variety of ways. I know for me, people will say, oh, but, you seem so accomplished and you seem so confident and, and all these things. It's like, okay, I mean, that comes with practice. Cool. Right. Yeah. Thank you. And that comes with practice.
Yeah.
But, there's still this sense of incompleteness. Right. And even in oneself, I can speak honestly about it, a sense of a lack of authenticity. Right. In some places, it's like, sure, I walk into a space, everybody can figure out I'm a man. You can figure out I'm Black. Depending on who's in the room, you may know I have some education. It just depends, as to who's in the space, right? But who I choose to love is a story I choose to tell, right? I don't have to tell that story.
Right.
But in spaces where I wasn't always forthcoming, I'll always tell people, this isn't, I never really believed in coming out. Like after I wrote that letter to my mom, that was the only coming out I was ever going to do. Right. Because as long as my mom knew and loved me, what anybody else thought, if I wasn't with you, really wasn't your business. And I didn't care. Okay. So I've never been a proponent of coming out in that sense. But this idea that whenever you show up in a space, if you feel like there's a part of you that you can't fully reveal, right? That's
okay.
Even if nobody's asking.
Yeah.
It does a number on you, right?
Yeah.
And that has to get played out. That does play itself out somewhere. It may not show up at work. It may not show up at church. It may not show up in the family, but it may show up in the bar. It may show up in your bar tab. It may show up in little secrets you have that you think no one knows. I mean, that's going to get played out somewhere.
Yes. And, this is the invisibility of it all. This is what I'm seeing, I'm feeling from that. It's just like many people know, I became a parent very young in life. And
you're still here.
I'm still here. But it was one of those things at that time. Now everybody can have babies, they don't even call it out of wedlock anymore, right? It's like, oh,
it's just baby. It's
just babies, Kim Kardashian, thank you very much. But at the end of the day, the stigma of it and it was the church, and so the places where people want to go to be loved, the place where people want to go and feel acceptance. Because even a friend of mine told me, as a caregiver for her mother with dementia, the church fell short of loving her through that and loving her mother, because her mother was the person that would shout out in church. And they got offended that she would bring her mother knowing she would shout out in church.
Right.
Okay, I'm just this is thing. So if the church, we're talking about and this is all religions. I'm not talking about just the United Methodist Church, for all of you who are out there getting all upset. I'm not talking about the United, I'm talking about church. When you have a thing called church, and church is supposed to mean love, acceptance, coming, not tolerate, come as you are. And then you get in that environment, and that's the one place you're wanting to connect with God, and people keep you from that because they say you are not acceptable. Because you had a baby at 15, or you were this, or oh boy, you got gauges in your ears, or you have tattoos, or whatever it may be. And then being gay or whatever is just another thing to add to the sandwich.
Yeah, and the church is the place, it's the place that should be calling out to all of that, right? I mean, and I'm not even going to say, to the broken, to the wounded. It should, right? Because all of us are broken and wounded in a variety of ways. And our identities is not our brokenness.
No.
Our identities is not our brokenness.
Yes.
Our brokenness shows up in the lack of relationship.
Yes.
And the lack of relationship is based on the inability, the unwillingness to allow people to be authentic. In fact, the church rewards inauthenticity. It rewards.
No, it does. It does.
As much as it celebrates mediocrity, it rewards a lack of authenticity.
Yes. And the other thing that happens in it is that then the people on the outside looking in who were wondering, is this a place for me, then see this, and then they never walk through the door. So those little moments, who would want to go join that club? That's what I always said. Who'd want to join that club? You know, and then those moments that we are authentic, they never see.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are moments, there are those gym moments, folks, that I always go, oh man, this is a moment. Can we repeat this again and again and again? And then usually not. Because we lose the momentum. Mm-hmm. So when you're talking about a passage out of hiding, you're talking about a passage out of hiding of not just saying, this is who I am authentically, because honestly, I agree with you. I don't think anybody has the right to know what I do in my bedroom. I'm clear about that. I've been clear about that forever. If I hang from the chandelier, that's nobody's business but the person who might have to catch me when the chandelier falls out the ceiling.
Amen.
All right. And the man or woman who comes and puts it back in the ceiling. It's not, so we make it too, we take the personal relationship too far. When we are talking about personal relationship, we're talking about connect with my heart. Mm-hmm. It's not getting a checklist of data about how I live my life so that you can use it against me when it suits you. Right.
And I think, and I believe the other piece of this too is as taboo as we make sex and sexuality within the church context, it's the one thing we will not have open conversations about in the church or even in our families. We just don't have those conversations until it suits us, until we decide we want to weaponize it in some way. And so I think, and I think also, pushing the conversation to the fore, we have to, really be careful not to encapsulate sexuality into sexual acts, right? And so sexual identity is not about sexual acts, right? Because there are people who identify as LGBTQIA+ and have never engaged in any sexual act with anyone ever, right? Because it's their identity, it's who we are, right? And so again, that goes back to, I'm not broken because of my identity. I'm not broken because of who I am. I'm broken because of systems that I participate in that do not validate or accept or appreciate, invite and include me because of who I am.
Yes. And that can be anybody. It can be anybody that feels that, my friends out there. Mm-hmm. An example of that is when I got divorced and I became a divorced woman. And I had to fill out applications and things. And I never knew it's funny how you don't zoom in on things until it becomes a part of you, right? So I never realized that an application actually has a section for you to check off that you're divorced.
Which is different from single or never married. It's different, right? It's different.
And
because
I was like,
the cultural value is marriage, right?
Yes.
The cultural value is marriage. So get this. Imagine growing up in a space, growing up in an ethos where marriage is the value. It is the cultural, penultimate, right?
Yes.
But for who you are and for how you are wired, made, crafted, and created, marriage is not an option.
Yes.
Right? So the penultimate is never, it's not there, till just a few years ago.
Right.
But even in the church that you and I participate in, to do that could get you
problem
hard, if you will. I mean, so that's just a reality. And, so it's in every category, there is a penultimate, right? Yes. There is this cultural value that then everything else has to, line up against. And I think that's where we get to privilege. Where we get to really understand privilege and how it works, because if you're married, you're privileged beyond those who are divorced, those who are widowed. You had nothing to do with your spouse dying or someone who's divorced. You had nothing to do with your spouse deciding, I don't want you anymore. You know, I mean, so, or you saying, I'm not going to be treated this way anymore, right? You had what were you supposed to do?
It wasn't in the plan, put it that way.
Right, you know, and as a man, you know, there's privilege to that. You speak English, there's privilege to that. Born in the U.S., there's privilege to that, right? You're a homeowner.
What your zip code is. I found out the other day that there's a major healthcare provider, actually all of them. If you live in a zip code that's a high crime zip code, you know you're paying more for your health insurance through your provider.
Wow.
The assumption is you live in a high crime area, so your ill rate goes up. But we know it. We know that. So rather than penalizing you by increasing your health benefit, why not go into the neighborhood and take money in and change the neighborhood? You see, this is what I thought about that too in some of the stories that you tell in here. It's like, why can't we make the change? Why are we not able to move? You know, why are we so stuck, Cedrick? We keep talking, we have language. This is what I said. And actually, I want to tell you, just beautiful. I could see things when you wrote this. Thank you for the visuals, because I'm a visual person. But why are we so stuck when we use vocabulary, language, that says the other? Like when we first started the pandemic, we're all in this together, and now there are hundreds and thousands of people who don't want to get vaccinated, don't want to wear a mask because of we're all in this together, but we're not. But we jump on this stuff. Oh, we're inclusive. We love everybody. But then the minute you have an opportunity to sit with somebody who's different than you, you scurry like roaches that when you turn on the light in a roach infested place. What is stopping us from going to that next place where we can be authentic and stop hiding as human beings?
In plain sight, right? In plain sight. Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's always, trying to, back up a few steps, Micheal, and see who's benefiting from this oppression. Like whatever oppression is being expressed, who's benefiting from it? Who's benefiting from divisiveness as it's being expressed, right? Who's benefiting from red states and blue states? Who's benefiting from vaxxed and anti-vaxxers? Who's benefiting from masking and anti-masking? Who is benefiting, right? And I think it's maybe too trite or too quick, or maybe I'm too naive, when we say it's just about the money, right? To follow the money. I think there's something deeper, there, something probably more sinister even than that. And I think until we can calm ourselves down to a point where we can actually begin to have conversation. Like I don't need to convince you of anything, right? No, like you'll never see me in a space trying to convince anybody. You've known me for 5 or 6 years now. You've never ever heard me try to convince anybody of because I just don't do it. I don't try to convince people of anything, and I don't argue with people. Right. I don't argue with people because, one, my grandmother didn't allow it. Right? She didn't allow it. And so I tend not to do things I'm not good at. So I never really learned to argue well. So I just don't do it, right? I just avoid. I'm not going to argue. Avoid it. I'm just not going to argue. I will lose. If we have to argue, I will lose. So I'm just not going to do it because I don't even know what we're doing, right?
Exactly.
I don't even know what we're doing.
It's foreign.
But I think it's just being able to release the pressure enough that we can at least say, wait a minute, who's benefiting from us not engaging? Who's benefiting from us not communicating? And I don't need you to agree with me, and I don't need to agree with you, but I do need to communicate with you so that we can have some sense of relationship, because if we have some sense of relationship, then we can share some responsibility and accountability for how we're living our lives together.
Yes. Oh my God. And I think about that a lot. Because I live my life through the two words, the common good. Because that's why I'm a nonprofit leader. It's about the common good. And when I get to the point where I don't see the common good in any, like, when you're the person supposed to be making policy and doing whatever, and the policies come out, and I'm looking for the thread of the common good in there, and I can only see only one group of people or one thing benefiting from that, then that creates fragmentation within our world. It creates fragmentation in our political system, how we fund things, all of that. And when we do that, then we create division, because if I live in this pocket and you live in this pocket, then, oh boy, I'm better than you, because like Oakland, Oakland is split by 580. The people who live above 580 have higher real estate value, everything, better air, everything, because they don't have the same amount of trucks on 580 that they have on 880. But if you live in the lowland, which is below 880, asthma, crime, fast food establishments, no supermarket, and then you're like, okay, so I'm lost. And that inequality creates division, therefore creates this, they're living better than me, keep those people down there, and then nothing ever happens that would be for the common good of that entire community.
Oh yeah, and anytime you are looking at a situation and you're able to distinguish these people from those people, we're not dealing with our people, right? I mean, so, and that, let's see, it's up there, caste. Right. I mean,
I got that book. Yes.
We're just continuing to support a caste system that we refuse to acknowledge in this country. But it's what it is, right? I mean, so as long as we are okay with our situation being as good as it is, or as bad as it is, and somebody else is being different, then it's not an our people conversation. And until we can get to an our people conversation, we'll continue to support whatever evil it is that wants to keep us apart, right? Because even if I have all the gold in the world, right? I would think I would want everybody to have all the gold in the world, not mine, but everybody to have some gold, right? Have a little gold, little gold in your life, right? Because I'm feeling good, I'm enjoying it. I want some other people to enjoy it too.
Exactly. And that applies to, the book is written in two parts, folks. It's Hiding in Plain Sight, and then there's, 4 chapters there, and part 2 is Living Out Loud. And one of the things I do want you to share is chapter 5, Learn How to Let Go, because that's one of the big themes in also Life is a Sacred Journey, that as a woman and as a person living in this world who has had a lot of stuff, I've had to let things go. Erykah Badu did Bag Lady, and that just made me understand. I was like, oh my gosh, I really am. I got a backpack. I got bags, and now I'm putting them inside a cart to make them easier to carry. But really what I needed to do was let them go.
Let them go. Yeah, let them go.
So talk about that chapter a little bit with us.
Yeah, and that's a good one, and
it is a good one,
and a painful one too, right? I mean, it's one that comes with some toil. And if you look at the title of the 7 chapters, they're really it's a plan. Those 7 chapters are a plan, right? And so for me, the learning to let go really centers around my biological father. And learning to let go of that longing. That's the centerpiece of it. There are other stories that are built around it, but it's really coming to a place of being able to look oneself in the mirror and say, without that, I am okay.
Yes.
Without that, I must carry on. Without that, I will succeed. Without that, I will manage, because I can look back over my life and I can see how I did succeed. I can see how I did triumph. I can see how I did make a way without it, right? That
And
doesn't mean I don't want it.
But it fueled you too, Cedrick,
Of
because I'm
course.
reading this and I'm like, okay, all that stuff actually planted little tiny mustard seeds in you to help you, not help you, but foster the person you are today.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why I love this book.
Oh yeah. You know, but realizing that, you know, for all the longing that I had for that relationship, for that acknowledgement, for that connection, God still sustained me without it, right? And so it's like, so I can continue to hold on to that for dear life and use that energy and that resource toward something that clearly is not coming to pass, or I can release that, right? I can release that. If it comes, it comes, but use that energy to put alongside what God is already doing and go even further faster, right? So, I mean, so for me, that was the lesson in all of that.
Yeah.
Right. And that's not to dismiss other human beings. It's not to dismiss their role. It's not to dismiss the fact that I would want nothing more than for that to be some other way. But I have a choice about where I invest that energy. I have a choice about where I invest my emotions, right? And so I can invest it in nothing, or I can take it and I can add it to what God is already doing, and where, you know, movement is already happening, where success is already present, and just move that along, you know, in a healthier way.
Yeah. And I bring this up because Life is a Sacred Journey is a supporter of all of foster children. And we really feel that that generation of young people and the generations of young people that are continually coming out of the foster care system are feeling like they're invisible. They get emancipated, whatever that means, at 18, 19 years old, and sometimes they don't have a place to go. And we learned some of them get their belongings put in a garbage bag and just sent on their way. Well, I wish I could give that chapter alone and the whole book to every one of those young people. And that's my message to you out there, to anyone out there. Again, you always know, I'm always going to say to you, if you're contemplating suicide, if you think you do not matter, if your beginning was the roughest freaking beginning that you could have possibly had, if you are still here in this moment, you will make it. And there is somebody out there, I swear to you, there is somebody out there that will take your hand. It may, all the other people that, if your mother wasn't there for you, your father wasn't, your community wasn't, there is somebody that will walk with you. And you will find, the more you get used to that, the more you know that there's somebody, more people will come. And you'll be like, okay, why did Cedrick call me? Why did he say good morning to me? I don't even know that man. Why did that man say to me, have a nice day? That's the universe. That's God telling you you are not alone in those moments. And so know that. And this chapter says also, let that go. If somebody decided they didn't want to be a good daddy to you, all right now. It's all right. It's all right. If somebody didn't, and understand, they may not have had the tools to do it. And you're better off that they weren't in your life. Have you thought about it from that perspective? Maybe this person did not have the tools to be a good father or a good mother or a good whatever, and they disappeared from your life. You may be better off that they did that.
Right.
So when what Cedrick just said, when we hold on to it, it just gets in the way of everything that you could possibly be, because you are magnificent without it. So Life is a Sacred Journey wants you all to know you matter, and that the world is an ugly place. Oh man, we can be ugly as human beings, but at the end of the day, we can also be beautiful as human beings. And there's a beautifulness in your stories also, Cedrick. The beautiful ones that have come into your life and given you love. And talk about that. Talk about that beautiful, those beautiful people. I call them now the beautiful people, because that's who they are.
Yeah, most definitely. And taking off of what you were just sharing, it's hope, right? I call inhaling and exhaling hope. People call it breathing. I call it hope. Because as long as we continue to inhale and exhale, that says we're willing to be here, right? I may not be here in all the fullness that I think I can or should be, and should be is a scary place to be, I know. But as long as we are inhaling and exhaling, you haven't given up. You haven't given up. And as long as there's breath in your body, there's an opportunity to do it again, to do it over, to do it differently, to make some different choices, even when it seems most difficult. Yeah. And I think seeing my siblings day in and day out and just continue to inhale and exhale has given me just kind of the wind, that I've needed to just keep going. My life mantra is loosely based on Colossians 3:23 from the one of the epistles buried way over in the New Testament, which is loosely translated, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as if working for the Lord and no one else. That's my translation. So you won't find that written anywhere that way. That's how I translate it.
That's the CB translation.
That's right, the CB translation. But it's work at it with all your heart. Work at it with all your heart. Work at it with all your heart. I begin and end each day with that. And that's based on the people that God has placed in my life. I mean, people, not even all church folk, right?
But, no, they're not all.
But not all church folk, right? Because I think about when I was first in the Air Force and I landed at Francis E. Warren Air Force Base and took the chance to come out to my supervisor, and it really was a chance because that was before Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Yeah.
And found out his story, and he pulled me into a group who were like me. And they escorted me around and showed me what this whole life could be so that I would never be in a space where I was caught off guard. Yeah. I think about when I was, after I left the Air Force and I moved back to Alabama and I was working at a church there in town and just trying to figure out what does a call to ministry look like? Where is God trying to send me? And a dear friend said to me, you're here slaving away over somebody else's ministry. God has something bigger and better for you. And within days, I was in my car and driving to Samford University in my Domino's uniform to apply for college. And I got in, and in 3 years was done, and then moved to California. And I think about the relationships along the way that even made it possible for me to know that California existed. And then I ended up here, right? And then I got here, and the people who have been in the right place at the right time. And I'm grateful that I had an ear to hear, what was being spoken to me and what was being offered. And sure, I had a dream about what I wanted to do. I had a vision about how I thought it ought to go, but that wasn't it, right? But without that dream, without that dream or that vision, I would have been stuck, right? But because I had a dream and a vision, I was willing to keep moving. And then God had some other people intersect with some information and some opportunity that helped me right size that vision and begin to accomplish some goals and to move forward, So the vision may not be the one you achieve, but it needs to be something that you're pursuing. And on your way to it, God will work in you, God will work through you. Yes. All you have to do is keep breathing and keep listening.
You're blowing up. You're blowing up on my.
It'll come.
People are just very loving your comments and stories, and we thank you, all of you there on. I just have to stop because my phone is making all this noise. Thank you, Teresa, Gary, Felicia, all of you that are writing comments here. Yes, this is. I need to have Cedric back because we're going to run out of time. But Betty says good morning, and Jane and all of you, thank you so much. Yes, this is what it's all about. This is what Cedric was talking about in the beginning, dialogue. Mm-hmm. And every dialogue should be that comfort space. Remember, there was a time that I would say, welcome to the my virtual living room, right? Think of this as like a living room, and where the fireplace is over there and we're having a conversation. But if we go into every relationship like it's a meeting and we have to an agenda and we've got something to accomplish, and they're like, Cedric said, I have to say to him, thank you for your thoughts, but this is what I believe, and you must believe what I believe. And then it gets in the way of love, and it gets in the way of partnership and camaraderie. And, you know, there's things I've learned about Cedrick in this book that I'm like, oh, okay, so we need to do some cooking together, and we need to, you know, and so those things I didn't know. Right. Before I read the book, but now I'm like, okay, when I'm down in Southern California, we're going to the grocery store.
We can hang.
We're going to get some cooking done. But that's what a relationship is about, peeps. Yeah. It's not this thing where I'm supposed to figure out from this now what his Achilles heel is. And that's what we do. We're always waiting to figure out. We're like Viper, waiting to figure out what's wrong with this person. So we can take it inside ourselves and then use it later on, either in conversation or in a way to hurt. Yeah. And you opened, Micheal, by asking, you know, why now? And I answered that in part. I mean, the now is really, you know, just about, I just think it's time, you know, that all of us take a chance. We take a chance on the love that we want. We take a chance on the world that we want to live in. We take a chance on the God who has invested in us. We take a chance on the communities that we're trying to build. And the only currency that I can offer is my full and authentic self, right? Wow. That's the only currency I have. So that's why now, and that's why this. Yeah. Well, I want you all to go out and get this book. I am going to finish reading it, and then I'm going to give it to my daughter to read, because the chapter, there's some things in here that will resonate with her. So thank you for sharing your heart and soul and making something that I'm willing to give to one of my most precious gems, which is my dear daughter. And thank you for sharing and being authentic, because you're right. When we started this makeshift Micheal Pope Productions and all of this, it was a dream. It was Felicia's dream, actually. It wasn't even mine. And we realized that we wanted just to talk to the community. We wanted to bring, and, you know, little did we know that we would get to this place where people are calling us from publishing companies, and we have Patreons, and we have patrons, and we're starting productions, and we're making movies, and, you know, we never, you know, and again, these are all conversations that haven't come to fruition, but they will. That's what Cedrick's talking about, that they will. And I don't even have to worry about it. I'm not worried about no timeline and nothing like that, but they will. And then these are people, this is going to connect with people all over the world. This is the thing. The neighborhood of life is the world, people. Mm-hmm. It's not just where you live, it's the whole world. And there's a young person somewhere that's going through this right this moment. Doesn't matter. They got a grandmother in Russia, and they're having the same thing happening. So, Alabama grandson, a Black gay minister's passage out of hiding, Cedrick D. Bridgeforth, and he's a pastor. He's I think you're a doctor too, aren't you? Are you a PhD? EdD. Okay, yeah, all of that. But he comes authentic. And, you know, I said to somebody the other day, because they dropped their degree on me in a meeting. And all of you who know me know how I feel about that, right? You know, like, I don't have my stuff here in the office for me to look at, or for anybody else to look at when they come here, because it's not important to me. I'm not putting anybody down who does that, because that's you, right? I always say, what I talk about is about me and what's good for me, because there's somebody out there just like me who thinks they're crazy because they don't do that. And I want them to know, no, you're not. You know, that there's somebody just like you out there. I did all those things, but I want people to come in my office and feel my heart. My intelligence is great. I love it. Thank you, God, for this little 3-pound ugly looking thing, Pepto-Bismol, tangly thing looking like a sci-fi project called the brain. I'm thankful for it, because there's people downstairs, Cedrick, that are the same age as me that have dementia and don't even know what day it is that I serve.
Right.
So you think I'm not grateful to be 64 years old and being able to have this conversation with you, read this book? Oh, heck yeah. But at the end of the day, it's about love.
Yeah.
That is it. It's like, that's what we plant. Cedrick planted a seed of love in me. He didn't know me from a can of paint. He didn't. He couldn't have, because I'm not from that part of California. But he took a chance to connect. So today, I think Cedrick and I have said to you, take a chance, connect with somebody that you think, they wouldn't talk to me. They don't, I'm not, connect. They will have something that is the same that you have, because you know what? We all want to be the best we can be. We all want to thrive, you know? Cedrick, any last words for this beautiful audience that is so excited that you're here this morning, or about the book before we sign off from them and then stay on for a few minutes?
Yeah, sure. Just in closing, thank you, Micheal, Felicia, to the whole team for Life as a Sacred Journey for having me. And thanks to the whole family that's out there. As in the old days, we'd say out there in radio land, but out there in virtual space, joining us. And what I say, and I think the real takeaway from the book, if you don't ever read it, if you just look at the title of the 7 chapters, that's a blueprint for how to just keep inhaling and exhaling. And as long as you're inhaling and exhaling, beloved, that is a sign of your hope. And as long as you have hope, there is opportunity for it to get better and for you to be your best.
Yes. So just because Cedrick said it, I want to read the titles. Trust your gut, do the right things, manage your losses, listen well, learn how to let go, build a team, another good chapter, by the way, work it out. I love that, because that's what I used to tell my babies when they were doing the terrible twos thing. Go over there and work it out. You'll be all right. Work it out. So Cedrick D. Bridgeforth is a dear, dear friend, dear brother, dear colleague, dear human being on the face of the planet that lives in these spaces, that manifests life in these spaces. This is a tribute to his life and to all the people that have walked through it, good, bad, or whatever. And it's an opportunity for you to connect with a life that is so important, because we all are. So thank you all for putting up with us this morning. Felicia's like, do we have to cancel? We never cancel Life is a Sacred Journey, even on Christmas morning. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for being a part of our grand dream and our grand community. I am here because you show up. I want to thank you for loving me through my time of grief. I want to dedicate this show to my cousin Masha, who passed away on Monday. So I'm now going through another wave of grief, but I'm going to be all right because let me get that chapter title here real quick. I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to manage my losses, but I'm going to hold on with an open, broken heart to how much I love them. And I will continue to grieve them, but I will manage it in a way that helps me to grow and be a better person. That's what grief does for us. So thank you for coming to Life is a Sacred Journey. Go out and hug a tree, pet a dog, pet a cat, kiss a child, kiss yourself, hug yourself. And if you're out there again and you're contemplating suicide, we'll put the 1-800 number down there. The world would not be good without you. The ripple effect of you taking your life will affect all of us, even if we don't know you. Hang in there, call that 1-800 number. There are people out there who love you and want to help you through this. Do not take your life. You matter to us here at Life is a Sacred Journey, and you matter to the world. You just don't know it yet. So call that 1-800 number, get some help so you can make it through this trauma, through this moment, because you matter, and the world wouldn't be great without you. So all of you have a wonderful weekend. Be good to yourselves. Kiss somebody. Just hug somebody. Laugh. Have fun. Have a good weekend. Take care. Bye.